The first module, Module 1, contains the introduction, wherein in this introduction we discussed that it used to be the subject understanding the self used to be general psychology alone. And general psychology aims to give the students the capability to understand themselves better. However, there are other disciplines such as philosophy and sociology, along with sciences like anthropology, that discusses also or tries to identify the nature of man, or to understand who and what man is, his place in the universe, place in the greater scheme of things, and in doing so, we shall be able to, in doing so, we shall all be able to understand better who we are. All right. Now, it is answered in general psychology in, of course, behavioral way. It is answered in philosophy in a hypothetical way. It is answered in sociology in relation to the society. It is answered in anthropology in relation to the development of man in history. It is answered in archaeology in relation to the ruins that man has left in history. So the movement or the solution here is to incorporate all the attempts in different disciplines and come up with one subject called understanding the self. Okay, so the subject understanding the self is not uh, psychology, it is not philosophy, it is not sociology or anthropology, but it is understanding the self, and it touches these different disciplines in order to give us a holistic answer to who man is, to the nature of man, and to the purpose of man's existence, his place in the greater scheme of things. All right? So, okay, let me clear the board. And then, of course, part of our discussion also after introduction is to introduce you to the uh, movement of how men tried to extract answers from nature by way of inquiring into several things or into several disciplines like astronomy, inquiring upon uh, the human body, that is in medicine, and that was expressed to us in the essay by William Stoger. William Stoger. And I told you that this is a challenge essay for you to read because this is of medium difficulty. And I told you that it has to be read as many times as necessary for you to be able to understand it. For some of you, I know that you are good and capable of reading heavy stuff, but that is not true to everyone. And I would like to start others to reading uh, materials that are harder to chew, no, instead of Wattpad. Okay, so this is not Wattpad material. And I also told you that there shall be an assignment after this. All right, then we studied the break from mythos to logos. Mythos and logos are two different ways of understanding things and giving meaning to the phenomena. By way of mythos, we are making up stories and ascribing phenomena to the actions of the gods. And there is something beautiful about mythos because it does not only explain how it happened and how it came to be, it also gives meaning to the mundane or the ordinary events, and even the mysterious things that are happening around us, uh, by coming up with stories about creation or coming up with legends. And those stories carry with it some meaning and some messages. Even the Bible employed mythos. All right, if you remember, I said that the first 11 chapters of Genesis can be considered a form of mythos because these are things that may not be completely historical. Okay? However, in Logos, we now employ empirical method or observation, and in our observation, men are using strictly scientific approach. Okay, by way of scientific approach, it does not necessarily mean that the things that men are studying using scientific approach are being done in a laboratory. What is meant here is that there is a systematic method, okay? Systematic method or systematic inquiry, a disciplined line of inquiry. So that is logos. Of course, in this systematic method, we employed rationalism and empiricism. Now, what is the difference between rationalism and empiricism? Rationalism is purely inductive or deductive reasoning, okay? By way of human reason alone. But there is a discipline here, a disciplined way of thinking, either deductive or inductive. That is from uh, from general down to the specifics, and from the specifics up to the general idea or laws. And then another one would be empiricism or empirical approach, wherein ideas are derived, conclusions are derived from observation, observation and measurements and experimentations also. experimentations. Nowadays, sciences are usually empirical, but we also still use rationalistic approach, especially in disciplines like political science. We are rationalists there. Although we also imply the power of our observation, we combine that. Okay, so it does not also mean that when we divorce to mythos and went to logos or applied logos into our inquiry, it does not necessarily mean that mythos is irrelevant already. It is still relevant because the scientific approach or the approach of the logos can give us answers. Yes, it can give us answers. It can contribute to knowledge, to the growth of knowledge, but it may fail in providing us with meaning. Okay, meaning is the forte or the province of mythos. To give meaning, to give significance is the area of mythos. And so it is still important. In a way, our knowledge about biology, chemistry, physics, quantum physics, astronomy, medicine, literature, and everything will be united and made meaningful and relevant by way of mythos. If not of mythos, then all this knowledge, all these disciplines, all these sciences would be uh, fragmented, meaning to say that they are not interrelated with each other. Mythos, the interrelation is made possible through mythos. Okay, so mythos now becomes like a unifying force in making sense out of all the knowledge and discoveries that we know and that we have at our disposal at the moment right now. Now, we also discussed in module 1 the first empirical approaches or first approaches in inquiry by means of logos, and those were the things that the first philosophers and scientists of nature did. Ito yung mga Milesian philosophers found in Ionia, from the land of Ionia, present-day Turkey, that they looked at the world. They looked at the world and they tried to find out the quintessential substance. Okay, the the quintessential substance is when all things, including not only the material things, but also inclusive of things like ideas and supernaturals and soul and spirits and angels and demons and gods, when they reduce to its simplest form, okay, when reduced to the simplest form, they hope that the simplest form would be the same for everything. And once we've identified that simplest form of all the things of all beings, then we will have an answer, or we will begin to be able to answer the mystery of the self, or the place of man into this greater scheme of things. Okay? So they were preoccupied in finding out the hyle, or in another Greek word, arche, Okay? In German, Urstock. In English, basic stuff. Okay? All these refer to the quintessential substance. Okay? So, hoping to find out all these things, these early thinkers, okay, uh, thought that they will be able to answer the puzzle about man's reason for being. Your assignment for Module 1 is supposed to be this part, self-understanding. Sabi dito, is it always easy to come by? And the best way to do it is to start a productive dialogue. A productive dialogue. A productive dialogue with yourself. Okay? Productive dialogue with yourself. And that is why this is something that should this is something that should belong to your journal. So these 10 questions, I hope that by this time you have already filled up your journal with reflections regarding these 10 questions. What are you most proud of about yourself? What do you like least about yourself and why? What do you believe your weaknesses say about you? What are you most grateful for? Who are you most like? If you could change one thing about your life, what would it be? What motivates you? What long-term habits do you have? How do you measure success? How do you currently measure up to that definition? What are you holding on to from your past and can you let it go? These are journaling materials. And as I have uh, discussed in our preliminary lecture, journaling is an integral part of your study. Although your journals may not be checked because they are private in nature, and so saka para hindi rin kayo mahiya na magsulat ng talagang uh, um, prangka, no? Yung hindi, yung wala kayong itinatago. That's the reason why your journal should be kept private. So I am not going to oblige you to submit your journal. However, in your recitations with me, I will be asking you things about what you wrote in the journal. But I will not also be particular. You are free to choose which ones you would like to share to the class. So these 10 questions are supposed to go to your journal. I hope your journal is already filled up your uh, with your reflections about those beautiful questions. You know what? Yung mga questions na yon, they will really help you look inside yourself and engage yourself in an internal dialogue and answer those questions. Answering those questions will reveal to you a lot of things about yourself that probably many times in your life, in your everyday life, you refuse to acknowledge. You refuse to you refuse to think about, okay? So ito, ayan, mapipilitan talaga kayo. And then this one is your activity or an assessment and this will be graded. And I know that you already have your Schoology. And as soon as I am ready to fix your account because as of the moment, ay wala akong natitirang lakas kapag natapos ko na ang klase ko sa maghapon. So I am planning that this weekend I will devote it into organizing your Schoology so that next week we can already meet through Schoology. And by that time, I expect you to submit this. Okay? I expect you to please submit number one. So number one, you have to read the essay by William Stoger, The Quest for Understanding and Meaning, from Process and Complexity to Meaning and the Transcendent, and write in your own words its key ideas. Okay? Write in your own words its key ideas. So yun lang key ideas ang dapat isulat ninyo. I am not asking for your reflections, okay? Because that will be the second part. We are going to revisit that. So this time for this exercise, I just want you to write in your own words the key ideas. Okay, you may use bulleted form or outline format. What is outline format? So you have idea, general idea, and then supporting idea 1.1, 1.2. That's an outline format. And then you have another number one, and then 2.1, 2.2, and then you have a sub here. You can write A, B, C. That is uh, that is an outline form or a bulleted form. Okay, that is the best way I think for you to organize the your understanding of this essay, to organize it into that form, because that form is really logical. It will force you to be logical in preparing or in presenting what you have understood in the essay. So here we discuss the Presocratics, and we said that the Presocratics were those first philosophers who made a disciplined inquiry into the meaning and nature of things. And these Presocratics were represented, we represent the Presocratics in the from the western side of development of ideas, okay? Hindi ko sinasabi, hindi natin ibig sabihin dito that there were no thinkers before Socrates in the Eastern Hemisphere or in the Eastern tradition. Meron. Okay? Andoon sila Confucius, si Lao Tse, okay? Si Kongtse, si Confucius yun, si Kongtse. And then you had the collective wisdom in the Indian culture, which is um, all written in the Bhagavad Gita or in the Vedas. All right? So meron doon. However, we are focusing on our studies, focus on the West, okay? Western development of thoughts. So dito in the Presocratics, we identified several people like Thales, okay? And Anaximander, Anaximenes, Anaxagoras, hindi na ako magjo-joke kasi na-joke ko na, hindi na kayo tatawa pag sinabi kong anak sa labas. Okay. And then, other Ionian philosophers like Heraclitus. And then we have Democritus. We also had Pythagoras. You know Pythagoras from the Pythagorean theorem. Then some lesser known philosophers, let's include one, Empedocles, or si Empedocles. Okay. Now, these philosophers, as I've said before, and we started in our discussion in Module 1, they look for the quintessential substance. Their idea is once the quintessential substance is discovered, then it would become easier for man to start making a right investigation about the nature, origin, purpose of human existence. Okay, so how do you reduce or how do you know the quintessential substance? Simple, by reducing everything, including thoughts and ideas and the spirit, and not only the material things, into its basic substance, basic stuff, the simplest into its simplest form. And they believe that this simplest form of one substance would be the same for all. It would be the same for all. Okay? Whether it is material or regardless of the fact that it is material or it is spiritual or otherworldly or simply an energy. All right? So here, Thales talked about water. So he thought it has to be water to be the origin and to be the quintessential substance. Others say the combination of the four basic elements. The four basic elements. Okay, that is water, air, fire, and earth. Now, kung nahihirapan kayong maalala yung basic elements na yan, okay, ay isipin ninyo yung The Last Airbender, si Aang. He mastered the four basic elements and he became quite a warrior. Yung bata na si Aang. Okay? Uh, so that's a very beautiful movie. Well, anyway, sabi ng isa dito ay I am not identifying because I cannot identify right now, and in my mind it is not really very important. What is important is that we know how their minds work and how they develop. Okay, so it could be Anaximander or Anaximenes, but then I think Anaximenes thought that it is not the four basic elements or the combination of the four basic elements. But Anaximenes would say it is the apeiron. Kung mali ako, paki-validate na lang, ha? Paki-validate. That is your duty as a student. You have to validate things, no? I cannot remember everything, and I don't like lecturing with books in my hand. Parang hindi ako ginaganahang mag-lecture kapag may binabasa akong libro. I want everything to come from my brain, from the mind. No, hindi naman sa intellectual pride, but in this way what I can give you is my crystallized knowledge already. The thing that I am passing to you have already been crystallized, that is already chewed and digested by me, and I am presenting this now to you. What I am presenting now to you is the substance. Okay. And then, so the apeiron is something mystical because it is not anything, it is neither something or nothing. It is called or it is um, described as the unlimited, boundless, something that there is no limit, there is no end, unlimited, and it cannot be contained, boundless. It cannot be contained. It is forever dynamic, it is forever in movement, It is forever making or creating and changing things. So it is an unlimited, boundless, a force of nature that gives reason to the changing patterns of weather and uh, birth and death and decay and birth of new species once again. This is the activity of the unlimited, boundless. Okay? Some of these people would focus on one basic element. Okay? Uh, Heraclitus, on the other hand, looked at the phenomenon of change, and he said, all things are changing, and therefore this is the law of nature, change. And he was known in his, he is quoted as saying as, there you cannot, sorry, that you cannot step on the same river twice. Bakit kaya you cannot step on the same river twice kung hindi ka naman aalis do sa tinutuntungan mo? Simple. The water there will no longer be the same water that you stepped onto because the river is flowing. Okay? And in as much as his idea of the basic element is change, he looked at fire as the catalyst for change because everything that you put in fire is actually going to change. Okay? Nagkakaroon ng pagbabago. All right? Even metals, even the hardest of metals when put into fire and heated, the molecules the molecules of that metal will begin to move quicker and quicker and quicker until it becomes liquid, until it would become liquid. Water will move and bubble until it turns into air. Wood would sizzle and burn until it turns into coal. So everything is changed by fire. And so Heraclitus would say that all things are changing, and the basic element or the basic stuff is this catalyst for change. It's fire. However, there is something wrong in the idea of Heraclitus because he failed to acknowledge that there is a being that is unchanging, and that is God. Or probably the reason why he failed to acknowledge that is that was that the gods that they know during that time were fickle gods, like gods that are fickle-minded like human, okay? Changing in their moods and in their decisions. But the God that we know now is a perfect God, and part of the quality of perfection is that there is no need for change, okay? No need for change. Change is something that is necessary only for the less perfect, okay? The imperfect. If you are already perfect, then every possibilities are already present in the perfect. And so there is no need for change. Okay? Who else? Okay, so let's try to look at Democritus. Democritus said that all things are made of atoms. Okay? Atoms. Okay? So all things are made up of atoms, and these are smaller than the molecules smaller than the smallest particle, and we can make we can hypothesize, okay? We can hypothesize that as soon as an object is reduced to its atomic level, we can no longer identify whether it is a matter or an energy. Okay, we can no longer identify that whether it is matter or energy or some kind of potentiality. Okay, or a potential energy. Okay, so you can cut an atom, you can bombard an atom, right? And it can produce an energy, but that energy will produce another atom, another complete atom, another complete atom. There is some kind of law of preservation in the universe, considered matter, or it may not also be considered pure energy. It is neither. It is neither. All right. And so, when you bombard an atom, it would produce another. There will be an energy that is produced in the bombardment of atom. But because of the law of preservation, the law of preservation, nothing, nothing is extinguished in the universe. Nothing. Nothing is lost in the universe. All right? And even if it is already burnt, it would still be there in another form, or in another way of existence, and it could be another atom. It can be another atom. And you have to also look into the possibility that this is something that Democritus may not have imagined, that an atom is not a single element or is not a single thing. It is further composed of uh, many smaller, many smaller components. Like, of course, we have the nucleus, and then we have uh, sw- um, uh, encircling around it in high speed are the protons and neutrons and electrons, forming like a solid gel around the nucleus. But actually, these neutrons are and electrons are simply swirling around the nucleus. Okay, so in Democritus's idea, it comes in a way a little bit closer, a little bit closer. Could an idea, could an could a spirit or ghost, if there are ghosts or fairies or soul, could it be reduced to a simple form? And could it be an atom? Or po pwede din ba na part of an atom, but there could be a universe inside an atom, because we do not only measure the universe in its vastness, uh, that the universe is so big and endless, yung smallness is also endless. Where do we stop? Where do we stop in finding the smallest of the smallest? Because whenever we get to be able to identify the smallest particle, the smallest stuff, we discovered that there are still components enveloping it. And one mystery that physicists, quantum physicists, and like-minded people have discovered is that there are mysterious elements in atom that are simply shooting out from nowhere, from the depths of the center of an atom. Something shoots out. So if ever may nawalang neutron, something would shoot out and replace that neutron that was lost. So this is the mystery of life. The mystery of life can be found, okay? There will be mysteries from the smallest of the small and to the vastness to the and into the vastness of the vast. Okay. So that's what we are talking about here in Democritus. So if Democritus say that it would be an atom, then there would be an endless reduction here, an endless reduction of finding the smallest of the small, and eventually, maaaring mangyari that we may find the component of the spiritual there, because we are no longer talking about material things here. We are already talking about reality and possibilities in this dimension. Pythagoras saw that everything is measurable, and the only thing that is used in order to measure would be numbers. Okay, Pythagoras. And so he said that one thing that is constant and reliable is numbers. So for him, numbers are to be considered to be the hyle or the quintessential substance. And from exact ratios and proportions of numbers, you can come up with various shapes and create works of architecture, planes and figures, and even sound like music. Remember that that the notes are simply another way of expressing numbers. Okay, so musical notes are actually mathematical. Okay, so I said we're going to talk about one minor philosopher. Minor because he did not actually identify the hyle, but he identified the impossibility of reaching or the meeting point A to point B. Okay, meeting point A to point B. I think yung iba sa inyo ay naalala to, because between 2 points there will always be middle, and before you get to be able to meet the end or the destination, you have to cross the middle. So the A crosses the middle, but then there will be another middle. So the A must cross this middle, and there the A is, and then there will be another middle, and that would be the one. And then hanggang sa magkatabi na sila, pero hindi pa rin sila nag-aabot because there will always be a middle between the two. Okay? In other words, it is just another way of elaborating the law of the physical law, which is no matter can occupy the same space at the same time. All right, let me clear the board. So we have in module 2 the presocratics, and we can also consider as presocratics the sophists. As you have already learned from our previous discussions, and I have repeated in my video instructions, sophists were people who were trained in the art of rhetorics. Trained in the art of rhetorics. And in being able to come up with a good rhetoric or a good speech, then the argument must be solid, must be based on solid logic. All right, but solid logic can also produce fallacy. Or fallacy is the correct use of the laws of logic, correct use, correct usage of the laws of logic using the right premises, but this use of logic, okay, is manipulated in such a way that it seems to be logical, okay, it would appear to be logical, but the conclusion is false. But because it is logical, the argument is logically presented, it is very difficult, it would be very, very difficult to contradict. All right? I am going to give you an example. Sino paborito niyong artista? Okay, sino ang paboritong artista ng mga kabataan ngayon? Si Daniel Padilla. Daniel Padilla is a star. Okay? Daniel Padilla is a star. Premise number 1. Premise number 2. A star is a heavenly body. Conclusion. Therefore, ergo, Daniel Padilla is a heavenly body. Okay. Ginawang planeta si Daniel Padilla. But it is logical, but it is also fallacy. Now, the sophists are very much trained in abusing logic and coming up with fallacies to create arguments that are indisputable because they are solidly constructed in logical manner, but the conclusion is still wrong. So they have no regard. They do not have any regard regarding uh, what is being argued upon is right or wrong. What is important is that they win an argument. And why? Why is it very important for them? Because there is money there, okay? There is money in winning an argument. Sophists were uh, trained in the art of rhetorics and logically coming up with good arguments, okay? Argumentators. And they do not care whether what they are arguing about is right or wrong. There is no distinction for them between right and wrong. What is right for them is the one thing that they can argue correctly, or they can argue solidly, or whatever is the need of their client. Okay? The one who is paying for them. Now, I am not saying that all sophists were ano tawag doon? I'm not saying that all sophists are unscrupulous. Okay? There are good sophists also, but they were overwhelmed by the notoriety of other sophists. Alam nyo naman, ano, in a kind of profession, kapag ka nahaluan yung profession ng mga kahit na maraming mabubuti, basta nahaluan ng nahaluan ng gulo, na-generalize. And in this case, sophists were generalized as corrupt, as spineless, and without any principle, because they can bend the truth depending on the money that is paid to them. So the good sophists, na damay sila sa masamang reputation. But we can identify some good sophists, like Thales was a sophist. And even for a time, Socrates was considered a sophist. Though Socrates doesn't want to be considered a sophist because he despises the this kind of practice, so he doesn't want to be called a sophist. But in all honesty and qualifications of a good sophist, then we can consider talaga Socrates and other philosophers like him, like Plato, kung pwede rin sila talagang tawaging sophist. Okay? Pero ayaw nga nilang patawag na sophist, so igalang natin yun. All right, so we have now the discussion on Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. And all the discussions here were clearly presented in the tutorial video that I uploaded for you. Now let me just give a very short, very short reminder of what these philosophers have contributed about man. So regarding Socrates and Plato, man is viewed as a composite of body and soul. Meaning, there are two beings, and these beings are added or united into one, made one, made as one, and that turned out to be man. Now, the body is inferior and imperfect, while the soul is perfect and permanent. All right? And the body must be, the soul should be able to emancipate itself from the body in order for man to live the life that he is destined to live. And that is to uh, be able to rejoin the world of forms and ideas, the perfect world in the minds of Socrates and Plato, world of forms and ideas. Furthermore, for Plato, the soul has other components. Ito was added by Plato that the soul has three components: the rational, the spirited, and the appetitive. That the rational soul should have some control over the bravery and courage of the spirited component, and uh, the appetite or the likes or the desires of the appetitive part. Now, uh, does this remind you of somebody? Okay, I hope you are familiar with Sigmund Freud. In the philosophy of in the psychology of Sigmund Freud, the rational represents the ego for Sigmund Freud. The spirited somehow uh, hindi masyado malinaw ang ano, no? Hindi pala pwede. Hindi pwede. I cannot compare because Sigmund Freud would have the id, ego, and superego. Yung id, yun yung appetitive, yun yung kamukha ng appetitive, yung mga base desires, okay? But the ego and the superego, parehong pupunta yun sa rational eh. Yung spirited, wala tayong paglalagyan. So, wrong comparison. Alright, so, yon ang contribution ni Plato. Now, regarding Aristotle, he did not define what man is directly. What he defined is what is the composition of being or substance. Being, what is a being or what is a substance? So substance and being are words that are interchangeable in uh, Aristotle. And according to him, according to Aristotle, a being or substance has matter and form. Okay? These matter and form are not beings. They are not beings. They are just components of a being. Okay? There can be no form alone and then there can be no matter alone. It should be a combination of two and the combination of two would be the being. So, hindi pwedeng mapaghiwalay ang matter at ang form. Okay? So, they are codependent on each other. The form informs, demands, specifies the matter. Okay? And what is the matter? The matter is that which is perceptible, something that you can perceive, something that you can sense or think about in an abstract way. So hindi ibig sabihin ng matter ay material lagi, okay? Material, hindi. But in the case of a human person, matter is the perceptible thing in us would be our flesh and blood and bones, okay? So how these are constructed and allowed to function in a particular way for us man, it is the form that demands or specifies what should be the combination of all these material things should compose man. All right. But in other words, all beings are matter and form. Pagka hindi ka magkakaroon ng being na walang combination ng matter and form. Now, in the case of man, we now can say that this is something that is added later on by Aristotle, that in the case of man, the matter is the body and the soul is the form, okay? The soul is the form, okay? And hindi lang living things ang may matter and form. Lahat, okay? Lahat yan. And that includes the inanimate, those that have life and those that do not have life, and those that are only existing in the mind, and those that are simply ideas. Those are beings. And ideas in themselves have its own matter and form. Okay? So, naguguluhan ba kayo? Reviewin ninyo at basahin ninyo sa Aristotle. It is very important to understand Aristotle bago natin maintindihan si Thomas Aquinas. because Thomas Aquinas relied heavily on the idea of the matter and the form in explaining the mysteries of the faith, especially the Eucharist, the resurrection, the incarnation of Jesus Christ. Lahat ng yon ay anchored into this metaphysics of Aristotle, that a being or a substance is matter and form and resulting into one complete substance. All right. Of course, there are accidents, and as I have explained in the previous module, accidents are things that are not necessary. They are necessary, they are important, but they do not define the beingness or the isness of the being. Okay? Kahit ako maputulan ng paa, I am still a person. Okay? Kahit ako umitim, masunog ang balat ko, I am still me. I am still a person. My being as a person is not diminished. So ano ang dapat mawala sa akin in order for me to cease being a person? Okay. So all these things seems to be accidents. Okay? So what should be deprived from me or from you that would make you no longer a person? And the answer is life. Life. When you are when you are no longer alive, you are no longer a person. You are you have already undergone substantial change. Substantial change. So pagka if you are no longer if you are no longer who you were, who you usually are, you can no longer if you can no longer be considered as a person or as a previous being, as another being. Kung dati kang kahoy, ginawa kang silya. Okay, kung dati kang puno, ginawa kang silya. Yon, substantial change yon, because hindi ka natatawagin puno, silya ka na. Substantial change yan. Pero kung ang nangyari lang, nasunog ang balat ko, umitim ako, that is accidental change. Importante itong mga importante itong mga ideas na to when we try to see how the ideas of Aristotle has been modified and Christianized by Thomas Aquinas. Sa journal ninyo, idagdag sa journal kailangan ninyong idagdag sa journal ito. What is yourself? State what the self is for each of the following philosophers, and after doing so, explain your self-concept and how are they compatible with your notion of self, or how do you see yourself in the eyes of these philosophers? Just like that, okay? So, una muna si Socrates, si Plato, and then Aristotle. So, ito, journal again. So, journal. Now, this is a required reading and I hope by now, kung hindi nyo pa man nababasa, ay na-download nyo na yung book, The Story of Philosophy by Will Durant. Okay? I have checked repeatedly. Lagi itong available dito sa site na ito, rosenfels.org, durant.pdf. Okay, every time I visit it, it is always available for download. I cannot share it with you sa ating GC because it is 35 MB and it is too big for sharing. All right? So, you have to read the chapter on Plato. Please read the chapter on Plato. I think 1 or 2 readings on the chapter on Plato will already make you understand and know about everything that you need to know about Plato's idea of what the ideal republic should be. Okay? What the ideal republic should be in accordance to the strength or to the emphasis of the three components of the soul that resides in each person. Okay? So, yan. Kailangan basahin yan. And then we are going to have a test. Okay? Matching type. So, meron na tayong we already have ano tawag doon, Schoology next week. So I can already administer the test. Please just promise me that you are not going to share your answers with others. I know that you can do that. I know that you can take a picture of your test if you are sure that your answers are correct, and share it in your GC. Pero sino ang kinawawa ninyo? Sarili mo. Ikaw yung nag-aral tapos i-share mo yung answer mo. Please do not do that to your topic for today in Module 3. We are supposed to discuss medieval philosophy, the medieval period, and under medieval period, analyze Augustine and Saint Thomas Aquinas. In the modern period, we need to look into the philosophy of René Descartes, of David Hume, and Immanuel Kant. And in the contemporary period, that is our time, we must look into the philosophy of Gilbert Ryle and Maurice Merleau-Ponty. And finally, pakibura, Leia. Pakibura, that is going to ruin my recording. Okay, and then finally, we are going to compare the philosophy, culture, and belief systems of the Western and Eastern tradition and how it has shaped the personality and the thinking of all the people. Okay? Now, the medieval period is a period of wherein a very very long period in history, wherein philosophy was used in order to explain the faith. Okay, so for in this period, philosophy is looked at as a handmaid of theology. Philosophy as handmaid of theology. That is, uh, in order to explain the faith, the best way to explain the faith is to use philosophy. Okay, and this is expressed very beautifully by Saint Anselm of Canterbury. Sabi niya, Fides quaerens intellectum, or faith seeking understanding. Faith seeking understanding. So we do not simply accept the faith. It enriches our faith. It does not make our faith weak if we wish to understand it. It actually enriches the faith once we have understood it. So Saint Anselm of Canterbury. All right. Now, famous in this period were Saint Augustine and Thomas Aquinas. Both these personalities have contributed so much in shaping our worldview, our attitude about life. Okay? Even if Augustine is much older or earlier than Thomas Aquinas, hanggang ngayon yung ideas ni Saint Augustine is still very influential. There are very good ideas of Saint Augustine that we can emulate and we can practice. But we should also look at Thomas Aquinas, because Thomas Aquinas has purified or perfected the Christianization of these early philosophies. And if we are going to look at the philosophy of Saint Thomas Aquinas, makikita natin that there are certain things about man and about being a Christian that we should correct, okay? Because because of the Augustinian way of looking at things is kind of extreme, and it neglects the life of man here on earth. As a result, Christians tend to be fatalistic and nihilistic, fatalistic in attitude. Those as a product of the influence of Saint Augustine. Saint Thomas Aquinas corrected that by saying that body, both body and soul are equally important. Kasi kay Saint Augustine was influenced mainly by Socrates and Plato, and the idea of Saint Augustine follows that of Socrates and Plato, that the soul is the one that is of paramount importance, and that the body should uh, should be uh, uh, should be disciplined and should be mortified. We should kill the body, mortification of the flesh. It came from the word mortis, mortification, came from the word mortis, mortem, mortuary, ibig sabihin dead, to kill the flesh. Okay? So we are already changing our understanding about how to be a good Christian, and the good starting place would be understanding Thomas Aquinas. Now, in the modern period, pinagpatuloy ang pagtingin sa sa kung sino ba talaga tayo, ano ba ang ating pagkatao. At si Rene Descartes looked at who we are in with a mathematical precision. For him, any idea can only be accepted if it is clear and distinct. And the idea of man as something that has a mind, a thinking, there is a thinking being, and then there is an extension of that thinking being, and that extension is the body, cannot be denied because it is an experience. So sinabi niya, there is a res cogitans and res extensa, and he was also famous in saying, I think, therefore I am. I am. David Hume would say that we are bundles of experiences. Very empirical si David Hume, that our personality, our whole being, are simply products of all of our experiences. Now, Immanuel Kant would promote something else, that we are not just bundles of experience, that there is something before the experience that is innate in us, that is inherent in us, and that these experiences are being organized in such a way that it should be organized. So there is something like apparatuses of the mind, and these apparatuses of the mind organizes our experiences, so that the experiences that we possess or that we experience can be categorized and be made meaningful. Gilbert Ryle, in the contemporary period, posited that man is not just the sum of its part, it is the whole. It is the whole of its parts. Okay? Uh, it's like entering a school and visiting the classroom, visiting the clinic, visiting the gym, but failing to see the school because what you are looking for are the parts. You fail to look at the bigger picture. When you look at man, you do not emphasize the parts, you look at man as a whole. And that's what Gilbert Ryle was trying to tell us. With Maurice Merleau-Ponty, he emphasizes that tayo ay isang kalooban at ang kalooban na ito ay nag-uumapaw na kalooban at naisa sa pandama ng ating katawan. So it is an embodied subjectivity. Don't worry, I will come up with another video tutorials that shall explain each of these philosophers one by one. But I want you to have a bigger picture right now. And then following would be comparison of the development of man between the Western world and the Eastern world. There are different cultures and different philosophies. And as a result, man has developed different types of personalities depending from where they came. All right? So the Western people are more forward because they emphasize some kind of individuality, right? The Eastern people uh, would look at themselves as inferior to the group. So they exist for the group, and so it is bad to it is not something desirable a desirable trait for an individual to be individualistic or to be assertive in our Eastern culture. Tayo mga Pilipino, mga Incheck, mga Thailander. Okay, so we bow to the will of the majority and galit tayo o hindi maganda ang tingin natin sa mga assertive, ang tingin natin sa kanila mayayabang. Okay? And so we tend to become timid, okay, and tentative in our way of speaking and in our actions. Hindi tayo ganun ka-forward katulad ng mga Westerners. Okay? Just create a table of top 5 differences between Western society and Eastern society, culture, and individuals. Ito yung isasubmit ninyo sa akin. Please write this on a Microsoft Word or write legibly on a white piece of paper. And then the seven these seven philosophers shall be part of your should be a part of your journal again. Okay? Journal.